In today's video, we talk with Andrew Kramer from Video Copilot all about how he got started in this industry, and we also give you specific tips on how to make your work stand out from the crowd. You don't want to miss this one. Hey everybody, it's Nick here again from Greyscalegorilla.com, giving you the tools, training, and tutorials to help make you a better motion designer. Now we have a really fun interview, but before we get started, I wanted to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we have a ton more videos just like this, interviews, podcasts, tutorials, all designed to make you a better motion designer. Now we also just launched a training page, so if you are interested in really stepping your game up this year, please click down in the description. I'll also link it up right here. All right, with that, let's get into today's interview. So today, of course, I'm excited to have Andrew Kramer from Video Copilot on the show. He came to our 2016 Half Rez event, and we were lucky enough to spend a few minutes backstage to talk about where he came from, what was his origin story, and how did he get into all this stuff. We also talk about specific techniques that you can use to make your work stand out from the crowd. Now, let's head on in and let's talk with Andrew Kramer from Video Copilot. Hey everybody, it's Nick here from Greyscalegorilla, and we're really excited to have Andrew Kramer here before Half Rez. We're backstage before Half Rez. It's starting in just a few hours, and I thought we could sit down, have a little conversation, and talk a little bit more to Andrew. What have you been up to, man?
Just doing some work, catching up on all my past projects, working on my short, doing some design every couple days.
You've been busy. Is there a movie you've been working on?
Yeah, so I worked on 3 movies in the past 8 months. So I did...
Nothing anybody knows though, right?
Some indie films, this one space adventure film. But I did do some work on Star Wars, and then I did some work on Star Trek, just like a hologram shot with my buddy Jace Hansen. And then I did a quick shot on 10 Cloverfield Lane of this like really horrific, dead pig. Check it out. It's great. I'm not Google searching.
Show your grandma.
She'll love it. Yeah, that was a little haunting because you're doing Google searches for sort of like roadkill and any kind of dead animal as like reference, and my wife like, "What are you looking at?" I'm like, "Get out of here. This doesn't concern you."
It's research.
Research, yeah. Now I'm addicted.
So, Video Copilot, how long has it been around? I feel like as soon as I was interested in learning After Effects and all that stuff, you were there. How did all that stuff get started?
So, yeah, it was about 11 years ago now, 2005, wow. Right? I wanted to, I worked at a studio. Actually, this is kind of like the backstory, right? I worked at a studio, one of the first gigs I had, and it was cool because they had like a library of stock footage, like for the compositors, like smoke and fire, and they're like, "Hey, you can use this in your shots," and I was like, "Wow, this is amazing." And then it's just gonna go.
That goes on and off.
Okay.
We could start over.
No, we'll just go from right here. It's fine. So I was working at the studio, and they had all this stock footage on the computer, like fire and smoke, and it was like really cool to be able to use that in the composites. And the supervisor, he's like, "Oh, and none of this stuff leaves the computer." So I was like, "Okay, I won't steal everything," and I didn't.
Wow,
So right,
safe with me.
But it was to see, the idea of video stock footage, of action stock footage, was what inspired me to create the first sort of action essentials pack. And I wanted to create tutorials. I saw the community was hungry for like things, and I was learning it as I went along. So if you look at some of my older tutorials, you can just see sort of my own progression, and from starting it to then doing commercial jobs. Like I always seem to try to be doing real professional work. I mean, professional to me as it kind of progressed, because it just helped the tutorials by making them more challenging and more project driven. So yeah. So you've always had a good style in the way that you teach. Did you develop that as you made more tutorials? How much do you think of the style of the tutorial and the way that you present your information? Well, in the very beginning, I remember doing the tutorials very professionally, right? Because that's the things I had seen, right. and it was very like, "Hello everyone, I'm Andrew Kramer. Today we're going to be," and it was very, and I think about like the 5th or 6th tutorial in, I started, I just remember mentioning a small story or just kind of being a little bit silly, just being myself, like really. Mm-hmm. And, this was before YouTube, right? This is just kind of, you might see comments or whatever, but people just seem to really like just being more casual about it. Like, it didn't feel like you had to, hold your eyes open to watch sort of some mundane stuff. And so it was really the community that helped make me feel comfortable just being myself and, being a little wacky or, just keeping people entertained with the content. Because, rotoscoping or keyframing, it can be a little tedious, but if you can keep their attention and they'll be able to pick up on all that information and retain it more and feel like, okay, I get the whole idea. So
make it fun so they keep watching, right?
Yeah,
learn the hard stuff.
Exactly.
Now, you've helped hundreds, thousands of people learn compositing, After Effects, all this stuff. What do you see in the people that want to do this as a career? What do you see as maybe a few tips or things that people can think of if they really want to push their career further? I'm sure you've seen a lot of people go through this.
Every day. I think, seeing like really high quality professional stuff can sometimes feel daunting, right? You look at this like, wow, I look at other, I was like, I better keep at it, and to be able to just constantly be inspired by other people, I think will raise your bar, right? And, you might finish something and, I've said this before, but, you don't want to think about just like, okay, I'm done, right? But really work on it to the point where if somebody saw it, they would say, wow, this guy, spent a long time. Like, you might spend 10 minutes creating some particles with particular, but what if you spent a couple hours and you filmed some dust particles and combine that together, and now you have an element that no one in the world has. And if I see that, I say, wow, this guy didn't just do the bare minimum. He went out of his way to really make this his own. And when people put the effort and attention to something, that is what visual effects, producers, people hiring, they say, okay, this guy, he gets the details, and that's what we need. We can't have, people who are just doing the bare minimum, like me, like in my tutorials. Like, you guys worry about that.
You get the gist.
Yeah, get the gist, and then make it good.
That's how all of your tutorials end, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You got the idea?
Yeah.
All right, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So, you're developing this style. You're making more videos and tutorials. Did you see Video Copilot as turning into what it is today? Like, how did you go through that process?
Yeah, definitely not. I think it was always about pushing myself, right? So, I was trying to make tutorials that showed realistic, real world things, and that led to my collaboration with J.J. Abrams, Bad Robot, and he reached out and said, hey, I've seen some of your tutorials, and he asked me to help him work on the TV show Fringe, and then that led into the Star Trek title sequence, and then we, just worked on stuff ever since. So it's like those kinds of things. Obviously, I'm like, as soon as all the directors see my tutorials, I'm going to be in the business, right? It's just putting that effort into making stuff that's accessible to people, and you never know who's going to sort of see that. And that same drive is what kind of keeps us, like, we do like our lightsaber plugin that we release for free, really cool things that you can do with it, and not just lightsabers. But then we made like a whole promo video and just this whole thing that just, it didn't need to be so involved, but we just love, just doing things a little over the top sometimes.
Your recent one is another great example of the rooftop pack.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen that, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and it's just like a twist on our own thing, because we do these sort of like trailers for, visual effects things, right? Like a trailer for training, like imagine that. But then to kind of make fun of ourselves a little bit by making this serious trailer for rooftop elements.
Some chimneys.
Wow, epic pipes.
To have somebody out there so early too, you saw training online and video before YouTube was even a thing, right? You were hosting videos on your own site. And now, with the ability that anybody can record these videos and post them up, how do you see in general, like, online training? Do you think of that as the best way people can start to learn these things?
I think it's a great way. You hear people say, oh, I needed to learn how to change my oil, and I went on YouTube and I found a video, exactly for my car, and there was only 2 made. There was the other guy made a video on it. There's just little things that you can't get from like a written sort of video or a written article or something like that. But to see someone else do it is only the first step in learning. I've just kind of made this sort of, connection, which is, if you want to learn magic, right? You say, oh, I'm going to watch a YouTube video on how to do magic, and you see them do a card trick, and they say, oh, there's a string, or you just palm it. And just because you know how to do it, you're not a magician, right?
Right.
You're not a magician because you see, oh, okay. But at the same time, you have to, if you ever hear a magician talk about, card shuffling, hours and hours and hours, like their whole life, and that's what they're dedicated to. And this is the same for us. Like, we're into this visual effects and graphics, and it takes, you're never done experimenting and learning. So it's amazing how many people are willing to sort of share, their knowledge. Like there's some great tutorials for all sorts of things, photography, video, and to be able to pick up on all the different expertise from different people who are doing it, that just makes us all better.
Yeah, or that reminds me too that sometimes it's the teacher that you don't connect with or do connect with that can really make the difference. So now, if you've stumbled upon somebody that's teaching what you're trying to learn, and you don't connect with them or vibe with them, you can actually go find somebody else. There's all
Completely.
these people now on YouTube. You do that, and to get the magician thing is such a good analogy too, because it reminds me of it's simple but not easy. Right. When you see the trick, you're like, oh, it's a trick. I know, of course that's easy. But then you pick it up and you try to do it, and your hands don't do what theirs did.
Yeah.
Or the beginner magic, mistake is always looking at what you're doing instead of talking to your audience, right?
Yeah, and that's all part of the illusion. There was something I posted a few weeks ago. It was like an AC-130 sort of coming through some clouds, and it was admittedly a pretty tricky shot to light and to really get it more realistic than not. And I posted it with, a real simple breakdown, like here's the shot, here's the element, added some stock footage, used a cloud background. It seems pretty easy when you see all of the final things that were used to make it come together.
You see the recipe, the magic trick, right? Yeah.
But how many, when you have this amazing cake, how many different recipes didn't work out? And believe me, there was a whole mess that whole weekend me trying to find the right element that felt at the right scale of the clouds. And so sometimes when you're revealing the trick, it can seem simple, but for you to be able to get to a point where you can figure out. In fact, this is a story that I think is really apt. Okay, so one of the first movies I worked on was Super 8, and I did about 100 visual effects shots, right? Not like the big train stuff, but a few shots here and there. Mm-hmm. And before the movie got to the point of being finished, the studio wanted to see our progress. JJ, they kind of make a promo reel of how the movie's coming along, and the studio's, yeah, this is looking good. So JJ asked me to take one of the field shots where the train had crashed, right? And the kids are standing on the hill, with the camera, and there's just green and the train has crashed. Now ILM was going to do the shot finally, and they're going to do their magic, but It's like, hey Andrew, can you comp in some train destruction just to kind of make this shot feel complete, right? I said, okay. So, I took some 3D assets, some destruction, stock images, train bits, and I put together, and I used a green screen key to key out the grass. And I was like, this is pretty good. It was a 3-second shot. It was nothing.
You were proud.
I thought it was movie quality. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I saw what ILM did. Okay.
Right.
And there's helicopters flying, and the dust is blowing around. There's emergency workers and people, and the whole scene just came to life. And I thought, well, you know what I thought? I thought I could do that, right? I could probably, I'll get my helicopter model, and I could use some dust stock footage. I could probably figure that out, right? But I can only figure it out now that I've seen the way it was done. I can see, oh, now I can. So when you can say, oh, I can copy that, or I can do that exactly, that's an important skill, right? To be able to recreate something, exactly the same. But to be able to come up with the idea and to know what's going to make something sell on such a big scale, that's the difference between sort of ILM and, you know, my first movie composite.
So those things, I mean, you're kind of talking about some of the things I call the 10%, those little 10% changes at the end that you don't think will make such a big difference. The dust rolling up, the helicopter, all the things you're like, is all this detail really needed? Or even just the right exposure or curves adjustment, a little 10% the wrong way can ruin a whole shot. You know, how do you know when you put work out and that you're proud of, that you're done? When do you lean back and say, all right, that shot is done, I need to move on to the next one?
When some kid starts crying, I go, all right, let's wrap this up.
When they say, we need this now.
Yeah, exactly.
When the director.
Exactly. When you run out of coffee. I would say, you know, when you know something's done, you know, it's hard. You never really feel like it's done, but I think you get to a point where you feel good about the overall design, you know, and then you just spend some time tweaking things, making sure things don't stand out, right? Like somebody said something to me, I don't remember, I'm gonna probably paraphrase it, but it was like about compositing is about putting the layers together and then melting it into the shot, right? And somehow that stuck with me, the idea that you don't want something to feel like it's anywhere outside of the, you know, so it's gotta have the blur and it's gotta have the grain, it's gotta just feel like it's part of it. And at least your mind won't say, ooh, why am I feeling like I'm seeing something strange here?
If you pay attention to it, you did it wrong.
Right. So if you just kind of look around, if you feel good about the design, then it's a matter of just making sure there's nothing that is going to stand out. You know what I do that's kind of weird is I'll put it on my phone or on a TV or on just a different screen and like just look at it at first glance and see, does anything pop out as being odd or, you know, in a different
what's your eye drawn to first kind of thing.
Right. And in that context, you say, okay, let me address that. Because, you know, when you start seeing something, I mean, you're burning this image and your desk and your computer monitor and everything is just like burned into your mind. It's just, you need to change it up a little bit so you can get some perspective.
I like that change, put it on your phone. I'll lean back and like squint every once in a while. And by squinting it, I find sometimes that thing that pops out was really obvious when you really like blur it all. Right. That's a good tip. Well, we got to get the show started here. We're like minutes away from starting Half Rez. For all the people, you know, out there looking at motion design and After Effects and Cinema 4D and all this software and Element, how do you have any advice for somebody that really wants to like step their game up, something they could do like tomorrow and the next day and the next day that they could really focus on so that they could learn faster, become a better motion designer, compositor, VFX artist, whatever they're trying to do? What is really that how can you help them move to the next level?
Yeah, I think it is experience, and it's running into challenges that haven't been solved for you or intentionally avoided for you. Like a lot of what we do is fixing things before we can even, you know. So I would say take a camera, go out, film something that nobody has, right? When you go take your camera, you're gonna have a shot that nobody in the world has. And if you composite some 3D stuff into it, if you have an idea for like, wow, what if, you know, this building, you know, came to life with music? What if, you know, this train was, you know, like if you come up with an idea and you film it, then you'll have access to all of the problems that you created, right? Which you'll have to solve. You say, oh, I should have waited for those people to walk by. Now I've got to roto them. How do I roto? So you're going to learn how to roto. You're going to learn how to deal with the reflections that are created from that thing, you know, because you didn't think about it. Now that water should reflect. Okay, now I got to figure that out. And you will just force yourself to run into all of the problems that make you a good compositor, a good designer, because those are the things that make the difference and it won't be a tutorial or it won't be something that everybody has seen. It'll be your perspective, your world, and then, you know, your imagination combined.
That's awesome. So thank you. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate you coming out here to Half Rez. And you know, where can people learn more if there's a chance they haven't seen one of your hundreds of tutorials? Where can they go learn more?
We can go to videocopilot.net. We have a channel on YouTube. We're on Instagram and Twitter. So check us out. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for coming. And let's go do some Half Rez.
All right, go.
Thanks again for watching, everybody. That was a really fun one for me, and I hope it was for you as well. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we have a bunch more videos just like this to help you become a better motion designer. And again, if you're looking to step up your motion design game this year, check out our training page. I'm going to link it up in the description and right here. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in another video really soon. Bye, everybody.
Swift. Howdy.
What's up, Half Rez? Where's the full res?
Oh, that's way later. Well, now that you're here. Yo, yo.
So, Nick, it's good to be here.
Good to be
It's
here.
great to be here.
Oh, it's good to see you.
What's the results of the test?
You are my father.